Lisa, after 12 years, we're eliminating your role, Dana said with that smug little smile she always wore when delivering bad news. Pack up your desk by Thursday. The HR representative sitting beside her nodded solemnly, as if this was some tragic, unavoidable circumstance, rather than a calculated decision to cut costs. I sat there in the sterile conference room at Hallwell & Knox Marketing Group, looking at these two women who thought they held all the cards. Dana Caldwell, my manager for the past 3 years, had never understood what I actually did. To her, I was just another expense line on a spreadsheet. The HR woman kept glancing at her watch, probably eager to get this unpleasant task over with. I totally understand, I replied, keeping my voice calm and professional. The words came out easily because I had been practicing them for months. Dana blinked, clearly expecting tears or protests or some kind of dramatic reaction. Well, that's good. We appreciate your professionalism about this. She shuffled her papers, looking almost disappointed that I wasn't falling apart. My name is Lisa Granger. I'm 45 years old, and I had just been fired from the only job I had known for over a decade. But what Dana and her HR sidekick didn't realize was that I had been preparing for this exact moment since the rumors started circulating 6 months ago. While they thought they were blindsiding me, I had been 3 steps ahead, quietly building my exit strategy. The signs had been everywhere if you knew how to read them. Hushed conversations behind closed doors, sudden budget meetings, the way upper management started looking through us instead of at us. I had watched this company eliminate entire departments before, and I knew the patterns. The writing wasn't just on the wall, it was written in neon letters. But here's what they didn't know about me. I wasn't just some middle-aged operations coordinator they could discard without consequences. Over 12 years, I had become the invisible backbone of this place. Every vendor relationship, every process document, every client preference was stored either in my head or in systems that only I knew how to navigate properly. Is there anything else you need from me? I asked, standing up and smoothing down my skirt. Dana shook her head. Just make sure to return your badge and laptop when you leave on Thursday. Of course, I said, already planning how Tuesday morning was going to unfold. They had no idea what was coming, but I could barely contain my excitement. This wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of the most satisfying week of my professional life. Walking back to my desk after that meeting, I felt strangely liberated. 12 years of my life at Hallwell & Knox Marketing Group, and it was ending not with recognition or gratitude, but with a cold corporate dismissal. As I passed my colleagues' desks, I wondered how many of them knew what was happening. The office felt different now, like I was seeing it through new eyes. My desk was tucked away in the operations corner, surrounded by filing cabinets and the constant hum of the printer. It wasn't glamorous, but from this spot, I had managed the intricate web of relationships and processes that kept this company running. Vendor contracts, client databases, workflow systems, all of it had been my domain for over a decade. I opened my laptop and began what I like to call my transition preparation. For months, I had been quietly backing up essential documents to my personal drives. Not company property, but the processes and contact lists I had developed through my own relationships and experience. Every vendor I had cultivated, every client preference I had learned, every shortcut I had discovered. These were the fruits of my labor, not the company's assets. My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Jennifer, who worked in accounting. Heard about the meeting. You okay? Better than okay, I texted back. Trust me on this one. The truth was, I had been having conversations with competing firms for weeks. Not actively job hunting, mind you, but staying connected with industry contacts who had been trying to poach me for years, particularly Kevin Harrison at BrightPath Creative Solutions, who had been persistently suggesting that I consider making a move. The offer stands whenever you're ready, he had said just last week over coffee. We need someone with your expertise and client relationships. At the time, I had smiled politely and said I wasn't ready to leave. But now, sitting at my desk, knowing that Thursday would be my last day, I felt ready to make that call. Dana walked by without making eye contact, probably relieved that the difficult conversation was over. She had no idea that she had just triggered a chain of events that would expose exactly how much the company depended on my institutional knowledge. The vendor relationships I had built, the client preferences I remembered, the workarounds I had created when systems failed, all of that would disappear with me. I pulled up my personal contact list and started making mental notes about which clients might be interested in following me to a new firm. After 12 years of excellent service, I had built relationships that extended far beyond company loyalty. That evening, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of tea and my laptop, finally allowing myself to process what had happened. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a calm determination that surprised even me. For so long, I had been the reliable one, the person who fixed problems quietly and never asked for recognition. But being dismissed so casually had awakened something in me. A fierce desire to show them exactly what they were losing. I opened my email and found the message from Kevin Harrison that I had been saving for the right moment. Lisa, I know you've been happy at Hallwell & Knox, but our offer remains open. We're looking for someone to head up our client relations division, and honestly, you're the only person we want for the job. The salary is competitive, the benefits are excellent, and you'd have the autonomy to build the department the way you envision it. For the first time in months, I smiled genuinely. I crafted my response carefully. Kevin, I find myself in an unexpected position to consider new opportunities. Could we meet tomorrow to discuss the details? His reply came within minutes. Absolutely. How about lunch at Romano's at noon? While I waited for his response, I began documenting everything I knew Dana and her team would struggle with once I was gone. The quarterly client presentation was scheduled for Tuesday morning, just 5 days away. It was Hallwell & Knox's biggest pitch of the year, worth potentially millions in new business. The irony wasn't lost on me, that they had chosen to eliminate my position just days before they would need my expertise the most. I knew that when my access was terminated on Thursday, it would trigger a cascade of problems. The client database was tied to my login credentials. The vendor payment system required my authorization codes. The digital filing system that housed years of client preferences and project histories was organized according to my personal methodology, one that I had never fully documented because no one had ever asked. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was my sister Patricia calling from Denver. "How was work today?" she asked, the way she always did. "Interesting," I replied. "I got laid off after 12 years. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Do you need anything?" "Actually, I'm better than okay. I think this might be the best thing that's happened to me in years." She paused, probably trying to figure out if I was in shock. "Are you sure you're handling this well?" "Patricia, trust me. By next week, they're going to realize that letting me go was the biggest mistake they could have made. And by then, I'll be starting fresh somewhere that actually values what I bring to the table." As I hung up the phone, I felt a surge of anticipation. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. Once my access was terminated and the chaos began, there would be no going back for any of us. Tuesday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything feel possible. I had spent the weekend at my favorite coffee shop, Romano's, having the most productive business lunch of my career with Kevin Harrison. By Sunday evening, I had signed an offer letter as Director of Client Relations at BrightPath Creative Solutions, with a start date of the following Monday, and a salary increase that made 12 years of underpayment at Hallwell & Knox seem like ancient history. But the real satisfaction would come today. I arrived at Hallwell & Knox at my usual time, 7:30 in the morning, carrying my regular coffee and acting as if nothing had changed. Dana wouldn't be in until 9, and the quarterly presentation wasn't scheduled until 10. That gave me just enough time to watch the morning unfold exactly as I had predicted. At exactly 8 a.m., when the automated systems began their daily routine, the first security alert would trigger. My personal login credentials, which had been deactivated Thursday evening, were tied to more systems than anyone realized. The client database, vendor authorization portal, digital asset library, and project management system. All of them would lock down when they couldn't verify my access. I settled at my desk with my coffee and waited. At 8:05, Jennifer from accounting hurried over, looking frazzled. "Lisa, something's wrong with the vendor payment system. It's asking for authorization codes that I don't have." That's strange," I replied, taking a sip of my coffee. "Have you tried asking Dana?" "She's not in yet. Do you know what the codes might be?" I gave her my most sympathetic smile. "I'm afraid those were tied to my access credentials. Since I'm no longer with the company as of Thursday, the system probably automatically locked them out." Jennifer's face went pale. "But we have contractor payments due today. If we can't process them..." "I'm sure Dana will figure something out," I said calmly. At 8:15, Marcus from the creative team appeared at my desk, laptop in hand. "Lisa, I can't access any of the client asset files for the Henderson presentation. The system says I don't have permission." I nodded understandingly. "That folder was organized under my user account. You'll need someone with administrative access to reassign the permissions." "Who has administrative access?" "Well, I did. But since my credentials were deactivated..." I let the sentence hang in the air. Marcus looked confused and increasingly panicked. "But the presentation is in 2 hours." "You might want to talk to Dana about that," I suggested gently. By 8:30, my desk had become command central for a growing crisis. 3 more people had come by with various system issues, all tied to my deactivated access. The beauty of it was that I wasn't being difficult or withholding information. I was simply no longer authorized to help, and no one else had been trained on these systems. At 8:45, Dana finally rushed in, looking harried and clutching her phone. She had obviously been fielding calls from home. She beelined straight to my desk, her earlier smugness replaced by barely controlled panic. "Lisa, we need to talk," she said, trying to keep her voice low. "There seem to be some technical issues that we need your help resolving." I looked up at her with complete innocence. "I'd love to help, but as you mentioned Thursday, my role has been eliminated. I'm just here cleaning out my desk until Thursday." "But surely you can help us access the client files for this morning's presentation." "I'm afraid I can't access those systems anymore. My credentials were deactivated when HR processed my termination." The color drained from Dana's face as the full implication hit her. Dana stood at my desk, her composure cracking as she realized the magnitude of the situation. Around us, the office was buzzing with mounting panic as people discovered one system after another that they couldn't access. The quarterly presentation was scheduled to begin in less than 90 minutes, and half the materials were locked behind security protocols that only I had been authorized to navigate. "There has to be something you can do," Dana said, her voice taking on a desperate edge. "Can't you log in just this once?" "My access was terminated as part of standard security protocol," I explained patiently. "HR would have done that automatically when they processed my separation paperwork. I couldn't log in even if I wanted to." This was only partially true. While my company credentials had indeed been deactivated, I had anticipated this exact scenario and made sure to download copies of essential documents to my personal devices. But Dana didn't need to know that. Marcus appeared again, this time with 2 other team members in tow. "Dana, we can't find any of the Henderson Industries client preference files. Lisa says they were in a folder tied to her account." "What about backups?" Dana asked frantically. "I'm sure there are backups," I interjected helpfully. "But they would be in the archival system, which also requires special access permissions. IT might be able to help you, but that could take hours." As if summoned by our conversation, Henderson Industries themselves called. I watched Dana's phone light up with their number, and she shot me a pleading look before answering. "Good morning, Mr. Henderson. Yes, we're very excited about today's presentation." "What?" No. Lisa Granger she's transitioning to other responsibilities. I understand you had questions about the campaign messaging. I could hear Mr. Henderson's voice through the phone, asking specifically for me to clarify some details about their brand guidelines. Dana covered the phone and whispered urgently, "He wants to talk to you about their specific requirements." "I'm no longer authorized to speak on behalf of the company," I replied professionally. "Company policy prohibits former employees from engaging in client communications." Dana's conversation with Mr. Henderson continued for several more painful minutes, with her repeatedly promising that someone would get back to him with the information he needed. When she hung up, she looked like she might be sick. "Lisa, I think there's been a misunderstanding about your departure timeline," she said carefully. "Perhaps we could extend your last day until after the presentation." I tilted my head thoughtfully. "That's an interesting idea, but my paperwork has already been processed. I've already accepted another position that starts Monday. Changing the timeline now might create complications with the new company." This was the moment I had been waiting for. Dana's eyes widened as she processed what I had just told her. "You've accepted another position?" "Oh yes, I should have mentioned that sooner. BrightPath Creative Solutions offered me a director role. I'm very excited about the opportunity." I didn't need to spell out that BrightPath was one of Hallwell & Knox's biggest competitors. Dana was smart enough to connect those dots herself. I could see her mind racing, probably calculating how many clients knew me personally and might consider following me to my new firm. The phone at her desk rang again, then Marcus's phone, then Jennifer's. One by one, vendors and clients who had been used to working directly with me were discovering that their primary contact had vanished without notice. And with each call, the scope of the crisis became clearer to everyone in the office. Except they still didn't understand the full picture of what was coming next. By 9:30 a.m., the office had descended into complete chaos. Dana was fielding angry calls from clients while simultaneously trying to coordinate with IT to restore access to critical systems. The Henderson Industries presentation had been delayed twice, and I could see sweat beading on her forehead as she struggled to manage multiple crises at once. That's when my phone rang with a call that would make this morning even more interesting. "Lisa, this is Patricia Chen from Henderson Industries," the voice said. I recognized her immediately. She was the marketing director who had worked closely with me on several campaigns over the past 3 years. "I heard through the grapevine that you're no longer with Hallwell & Knox. Is that true?" I glanced around the office to make sure no one was listening. "Yes, my role was eliminated last week." "That's unfortunate for them," Patricia said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "I don't suppose you'd be interested in hearing about some new opportunities. We've been considering bringing some of our marketing work in-house, and we need someone who understands our brand voice." This was an unexpected development, but a welcome one. I'd certainly be open to discussing it. "Perfect. Are you available for lunch today? I know it's short notice, but we're moving quickly on this." "I think I can make that work," I said, watching Dana frantically searching through filing cabinets. After I hung up, I noticed that Jennifer from accounting was hovering nearby, looking nervous. "Lisa, I hate to bother you with this, but we've got a serious problem with the Miller & Associates contract. They're saying their payment is 3 weeks overdue, but I can't find any record of the invoice in our system." I nodded sympathetically. The Miller invoices were always processed through a special workflow because of their unique billing requirements. It's documented in the vendor management folder, but that's locked with everything else. "Is there any way you could walk me through it? Just this once?" "I wish I could help, but I'm not authorized to access company systems anymore. Plus, there might be liability issues if I'm providing guidance on financial processes after my termination." This was true, but it was also convenient. I had no intention of solving their problems for them, not after the way they had dismissed me. At exactly 10 a.m., when the Henderson presentation was supposed to begin, Dana made an announcement to the office. "Due to some technical difficulties, we're postponing this morning's client meeting until later today." I checked my email and found 3 new messages. The first was from Kevin Harrison at BrightPath. confirming details about my Monday start date and asking if I needed anything for the transition. The second was from Patricia Chen, suggesting we meet at Fontaine Bistro for lunch. The third was from Tony Rodriguez at Miller & Associates, asking why their regular contact person seemed to have disappeared. I responded to all 3 emails quickly, then stood up and gathered my purse. "Dana," I called out pleasantly. "I'm taking an early lunch today. I should be back around 2. She looked up from her computer screen, her eyes wild with stress. "Actually, could you stay through lunch? We really need to sort out these system issues." "I'm afraid I have a prior commitment," I said, "but I'm sure you'll figure everything out." As I walked toward the elevator, I could hear phones ringing throughout the office and Dana's increasingly strained voice trying to manage the crisis. The elevator doors closed just as I saw her pick up another call, probably from yet another confused client or vendor. The real fun was just getting started. Lunch at Fontaine Bistro was the most productive meal I had eaten in years. Patricia Chen from Henderson Industries had come prepared with a formal consulting proposal that would pay me more per month than I had been making at Hallwell & Knox for an entire quarter. But the real satisfaction came when she explained why they were moving so quickly. "Honestly, Lisa, you were the only reason we stayed with Hallwell & Knox as long as we did," she said, cutting into her salmon. "You understood our brand better than their entire creative team. When we heard you were available, it was a no-brainer." "I appreciate that," I replied, trying to contain my excitement. "When would you want to start?" "How about next week? We can work around your other commitments." I signed the consulting agreement right there at the table, knowing that Dana was probably still scrambling to reschedule the presentation that should have showcased Henderson Industries as a satisfied client. The irony was delicious. When I returned to the office at 2 p.m., the atmosphere had deteriorated even further. Dana was on the phone with what sounded like damage control, while Marcus and 2 other team members were hunched over a computer, trying to recreate client files from scratch. "Lisa," Dana called out the moment she saw me. "We need to discuss extending your transition period. There are complications we didn't anticipate." "What kind of complications?" I asked innocently. "Several clients have called asking for you specifically, and we're having trouble accessing some of the project documentation." I nodded understandingly. "That does sound challenging. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, I start my new position Monday. BrightPath Creative Solutions is expecting me to begin client outreach immediately." The words hit their target perfectly. Dana's face went white as she realized that not only was I leaving, but I was taking my relationships directly to their competition. The final hours of Tuesday unfolded exactly as I had orchestrated. By 3 p.m., word had spread through the office that several major clients were requesting information about my new position. The Henderson Industries meeting had been rescheduled for Wednesday, but Patricia Chen had already informed them that Henderson would be transitioning to working directly with me as an independent consultant. Miller & Associates called again, this time speaking directly to Dana about their confusion over invoice processing and their preference for maintaining their working relationship with me. Tony Rodriguez was polite but clear. If I was no longer handling their account, they would need to reevaluate their partnership with Hallwell & Knox. At 4 p.m., Dana appeared at my desk one final time, looking defeated. "Lisa, I think we may have made a mistake with the timing of your departure," she said carefully. "Is there any possibility of reconsidering the new position? We'd be willing to discuss a significant increase in compensation." I looked up from my computer, where I had been responding to emails from 3 other former clients who had heard about my availability. "That's very generous, but I've already committed to BrightPath. And honestly, after 12 years here, I'm excited about the fresh start." "What about a consulting arrangement, just to help with the transition?" "My non-compete agreement with BrightPath wouldn't allow that," I lied smoothly. There was no non-compete, but Dana didn't need to know that. As I packed up the last of my personal items, I reflected on how perfectly everything had fallen into place. Tomorrow, I would officially clean out my desk and say goodbye to Hallwell & Knox forever. Monday, I would start fresh at a company that valued my expertise. And in between, I would begin consulting work that would pay me more in 6 months than I had made here in 2 years. Sometimes the best revenge was simply letting people discover their own mistakes. As I walked out of Hallwell and Knox for the last time, I realized that their short-sighted decision to eliminate my role had given me something far more valuable than job security. It had given me the courage to finally claim my worth in an industry that had undervalued me for too long. The journey from loyal employee to empowered entrepreneur had taught me that sometimes the most devastating revenge is simply succeeding beyond their wildest imagination.